Hey everyone, my name is Alexandra Hanson, and I'm an events experience designer at OfferZen. Some of you might be wondering, what is an events designer doing speaking at UXSA, a user experience conference? Well, to shed some light on this, I'm here to share with you my journey. It's been a roller coaster filled with lots of lows and frustrations, but also with lots of highs and wins. The topic that I'm going to be discussing with you today is how user experience has evolved my everyday thinking. Now, you must be thinking, user experience affecting how I, as a designer, think? Well, I've had numerous experiences with how user experience has evolved and changed the way I approach my tasks at work. These principles that I have identified and made actionable steps from, making my work life easier, is what I want to share with you all today. In addition to this, I'll also share how you can start applying this in your own everyday lives and become more aware of the opportunities it creates. And to start this journey, we'll need to go back to the start. In university, I studied visual communication, majoring in graphic design. At the time, I really cared about creating cohesive branding for projects, trying to make the world better, one pretty piece of packaging at a time. While I was acquiring these design skills, the term user experience was not mentioned once. This is potentially understandable, as it is something that is more product related, whereas graphic design, or at least most of the projects we worked on, resided in the physical world. Fast forward to my first job, graphic designer at South African startup called OfferZen. Just to stop here and give some quick context about OfferZen. For those of you who don't know, OfferZen is an online marketplace where candidates can find their dream jobs. You create a profile on the platform and instead of you reaching out to companies apply to you. From a company perspective, you get access to a curated marketplace of actively looking designers, developers, product managers, and data scientists. If you have any specific questions about OfferZen, you can visit us at our stand outside during the break, and we'll be happy to help. If you haven't already visited our stand, you can still grab one of our awesome First Love t-shirts. We have also interviewed designers at Dropbox and Envision and created a useful how to create a badass UX portfolio guide, which we are handing out at our stand today. Now, to get back on track to my story. Like many positions in a startup, you often get thrown in the deep end and start tackling projects or scenarios your degree never really prepared you for. Starting as a graphic designer, I worked on the visual elements of our brand, from blog creatives to swag to t-shirts to our marketing materials. I really got full exposure to all the print elements. And then I started working on a few digital elements. Suddenly, phrases like, "Did you think of the user? Did you test this? How does this affect the user's experience?" were thrown at me. I was like, what do you mean, the user's experience? How they look at it? Going back to the drawing board, this is where I started learning the benefits of understanding user experience fundamentals. Reading suggested book after book by our internal experts, working on guided projects with our head of design, and recently completing a UX course at Get Smarter, I really feel like I leveled up and started to learn a new skill set. Little did I realize this wasn't the only thing that had started to change. Not only did I learn new skills, but I slowly started to realize that those same skills were influencing my everyday mindset and my general approaches to work. As designers, we play a powerful role in determining the outcome of a product. From researching, to planning, to iterating, and testing, these all take place to make sure that we meet the goals that we set out to achieve at the beginning. But what if we applied these UX principles to our own lives? That leads me to what I want to talk to you about today: how user experience has evolved my everyday thinking. But why is this important to discuss? I think it's super important to talk about these things, as designers, we are so focused on improving the lives of our users that we often forget how we can improve things for ourselves. I want to share with you situations which, by following basic principles or theories of design, has allowed for me to work smarter and harder and to get the best out of any situation. As I have already started, I gave you some background information as to who I am and where I am now. For the rest of the presentation, I plan to share 4 stories of small, and perhaps big, situations that I have realized have been influenced by UX principles, that you can apply yourselves in your everyday work. After sharing these learnings, I'll then link back to the theme of this conference and share with you my own interpretation of how this thinking goes hand in hand with the future of UX. Sounds good? Let's jump into my first learning. Give guidance instead of making things self-evident. A while back, when I was still in my designer role, I was tasked with leading the idea generation session for new marketing campaigns for OfferZen's, at the time, latest adverts. This meant I had to create over 20 adverts that showcased what we offered as a service. The hard part? I had no idea how to get the best out of the people I was collaborating with. The usual process for creating new adverts was 1. Everyone go off and do your own research, either through Googling or brainstorming or whatever you decided. 2. Sit together for an hour and present your ideas. This could have been in the form of a Google slide presentation or just reading from your book. And 3. Pick your top 20 ideas and then I'd go and create them. This was generally done through a unanimous vote from members within the room. What I didn't like about this process was that it, 1, didn't enable collaboration to workshop epic ideas, and 2, it resulted in louder, more opinionated voices being heard over softer spoken team members who weren't as confident. Before the meeting, I actually completed the book Don't Make Me Think, which on its own is a great book I'd recommend for shaping the way you think or approach situations. The writer mentions that in a UX scenario, the usability of a web page should be obvious, but also helpful, so that you, just by looking at it, the average user will know what it is and how to use it. Straightforward, right? He touches on the idea of giving guidance instead of making things self-evident. The more I thought about this, I realized that I could use these same principles in a way to solve these problems. Instead of going through the usual process, in the session, I rather asked guiding questions such as, what could you do to improve our teammates' answer, to facilitate more of a conversation and allow for opportunities of collaboration? My main reason for using this process is because it is now allowed for people to collaborate and converse over their ideas, but also allowed for everyone in the room to be heard. And the results were pretty cool. By asking guiding questions, it allowed for softer spoken team members to challenge ideas and suggest new ones. After fleshing ideas out, instead of having 1 idea, we had 5. After this hour session, we had enough ads to cover the next month, plus a backlog of ideas to refer back to when we needed new ads. Here's one of the examples where this happened if you were curious. From using the principle of making things self-evident, my biggest learning from this was, to get the best out of a user, don't give them the answers you think you need, rather prod to uncover new learnings. You'll be surprised with what you actually uncover in the end. Continuing my storytelling mode, my next learning is all about how user involvement is key. In startup land, you tend to shift roles quite often and assist team members where help is needed. Being in the marketing team, as a designer, this allowed for me to be actually exposed to performance marketing. So much so that I often ran my own experiments, uploaded my own adverts, and handled advertising spend. While I was doing this, we had an unusual spike in signups to the platform. That's good, right? Well, it is, but the problem is we had no idea what could have triggered this. What made it harder was that our data couldn't show anything significant, and my team lead wanted a reason why. So, I set out to try and figure it out. Initially, there was no clear way with how we should have handled the situation. Should we dive deeper and further into the data we had already, which showed nothing significant as far as we could see? Do we talk to users? And if we did, which users did we talk to? There were few options, but we weren't sure what the best one was. Insert the light bulb moment. OfferZen sponsors over 20 events throughout the year, which on its own is an awesome opportunity to chat directly with our audience. We hadn't used this opportunity in the past, so we thought, while handing out t-shirts, let's see if we can get some feedback or information from the attendees. Surprisingly enough, they were more than happy to chat to a coffee buzz designer who incentivized them with a free t-shirt. P.S. I'm really sorry if this was me to you last year. I then asked users questions such as, where had they seen our ads? Did they resonate with you? Did the ads make sense? Instead of relying on graph-based metrics and engagement levels, I wanted to get answers from the people we were trying to reach in the first place. If you are interested, the book, Interviewing Users, is a great intro, sharing many useful approaches to getting the most out of speaking to users and the right questions to ask. My main reason for targeting users at conferences is that 1, they are generally always keen to chat with us, well, at least from past experiences. And number 2, you get over 100 people within your target audience with varying opinions in a room at the same time. In user feedback sense, that's like a goldmine of ideas. So, our team asked as many people as we could to get a range of responses. Turns out, developers really enjoyed our unicorn adverts, despite the fact that we were trying to reach designers with them. Good to know. We ended up making learnings about our advertising that we would have never expected or been able to figure out from a graph. So, my biggest learning in this was that users want to give us feedback. We just need to give them the opportunity to do so. Learning number 3. Know where you are in the process. From speaking to users at our conferences, we realized just how collaborative and interactive the design community actually is. Based on how excited designers seemed about OfferZen, we decided to set up a referral email that would allow for them to invite other designers and earn $5,000 if their friend got placed through us. But there was one problem. I realized I had no clue what other emails the designers on the platform were getting from us. Initially, we were just going to create an email to get them to refer friends, but without context to what else they already received, we didn't want to randomly spam them out of nowhere. That's when I thought of the user experience concept of understanding your user's journey. In user experience, it is crucial to understand what your user goes through, say, when visiting a website, for example. You need to have some sort of clarity on where they came from, what they want to achieve with your site, and how they interact with the brand post-website. I couldn't just send our users a random email out of the blue if it didn't make sense in the grander scheme of things. I then decided to take a step back. This helped as it gave me a basic overview to understand our user's journey. I then realized what also made this even harder was that I was quite close to the situation, so I had a couple of biases. In an attempt to solve this, I enlisted the help of a colleague from a different team with a fresh perspective to go through the flow with me. This really helped me get a new perspective and understanding of what our designers experience from a completely unbiased view. By breaking it down and using this process or way of thinking, it allowed for me to get a completely unique and fresh perspective on things. I wouldn't have made as interesting learnings or had certain things flagged by a team member if I didn't get them involved. As a result, I managed to craft my email in a way that fits into the overall user journey. Looking at the current emails they were already getting, we created an email that fit the same tone of voice and branding style. Because of this, we also managed to ship the experiment quite quickly. In the end, it resulted in us adding value and growing our OfferZen design community. So, my biggest learning from this is that it is crucial to take a step back and understand where your users are in the process so that you can give them the best experience from start to finish. Finally, my last learning, user experience in the physical landscape. So some of you may still question why an events designer is presenting at a user experience conference. Well, hopefully this will help give some light to this. In events, you have a user, an attendee, and this user wants to achieve something. They have a goal. Everyone's goal is different. Some might be to network, to share their own thoughts and new learnings that they might have made, to build up a community who they can then network with, to learn something new. No matter what they want to learn, it is my role as an events designer to help them along this journey to achieve their goals, because user experience is not just limited to the virtual world. It is something that can be expressed and used within the physical space too. I'm now going to share with you how I UX an event. Leading up to an event, we need to ensure that our attendees, or the user, receives all the relevant information they need to access the event as easily and efficiently as possible. It is important to get the user experience right, as the information needs to be straightforward and easily digestible. But also, the amount we need to send needs to be limited as to not appear spammy. This adds value to our attendees, as they are getting the information that they need, just right enough to hype them up for the event, but not too much that it overwhelms them. On the night of the event, there are many things that a user can or has to interact with. A registration desk, other attendees, interactive walls, the list can go on, depending on your event structure. As an example, at one of our tech inclusion events we ran, we set up a wall area posing a question. People could then answer the question on the wall with color-coded stickies. What we realized with this that could be problematic is that people might feel that their opinion didn't matter or felt like it was a chore to put their opinion on the wall. To solve this, we had one of our OfferZen team members hang out near the wall and mingle with the different attendee groups. She would then ask them the same question on the wall, get super excited by their response, and then ask them if they could add it to the wall as well. By getting excited, she showed them that their opinion mattered and it was valuable, because it was. This adds value to our users as they feel like they are directly contributing and that their opinion has been heard. At an event, the content is presented in a specific way, fulfilling that original user goal of learning. How the user experiences that information, to hopefully then action later at work, is super important. Does a panel discussion portray the information better than a keynote? Can a tool or handout enable users to remember better and focus on the discussion and not take notes? These are all the questions I ask to ensure that the user gets the best experience possible. By being aware of these things, it helps me try and make the experience of that medium better. This adds value to our attendees, as they are then fulfilling one of their main goals of attending an event. Not only is there pre-event work or work on the night, but we also have post-event tasks, wrapping up loose ends to complete the experience and hopefully getting them to come back for more, aka another event. Here we send a series of emails to attendees asking them for feedback on the night so we can then make improvements and iterate for other users. And 2, share the content we have created from the night, as they may want to relive the night or share this with friends and colleagues. We also care about the speaker experience, wanting them to have a memorable event collaborating with us. So, we also send them thank you emails and share the content with them, as they essentially helped us create it. This is valuable for our users, as we 1, learn how to optimize or improve our event for the next batch of users, and 2, get valuable content they can refer back to at a later stage. As you can see, just like a product or online tool, we want to create a great experience for users so that they can ultimately come back to use the platform again. We want users to have such a great experience at our events that they want to come back for more. Up until this point, the journey that I have shared with you has either been very retrospective or focused in the now. But what about the future? Linking to the theme of this conference, Beyond Users, I want to change that slightly. I feel like the future of UX lies with no restrictions, more like beyond product. So, what does this even mean? Thinking beyond product means thinking beyond the constraints of a virtual or online product. Instead of stopping at the online tool, thinking further to how the users interact with the product offline. I think it is important, as often as designers, we only think about the product. We care about a user journey that starts and ends with a product. But what if we started thinking earlier? What if we considered how they got to the product? Where they're coming from? What situations they're coming from? Imagine customized landing pages that are built for users that come from different platforms. That already allows for a more personalized user journey than a generic landing page. As I have learned, this is important as it allows for designers to think further without the constraints. It allows for creativity, to think of exciting, new ways you can customize or improve this journey from the physical space to your product. It helps you to be even more aware of your user, and it probably expands your target base. You don't just consider the users that make it successfully onto your product, but also those who struggle to even get there in the first place, or those who get lost along the way. Now I know this is an interesting way of thinking, but so far it has proved helpful in my everyday life. You can see this from my learnings I have just shared. But to do this takes time. And I myself am still figuring it out and reminding myself of this. So I thought, to help shift your mindset, you can take a step back. Remove yourself from the situation. Get outside opinions. This helps you zoom out and get a picture of the whole process, not the tiny one you are focusing on. Collaborate. Talk to people. Interact with the other teams in your company, especially marketing. Understand what they are doing to get the users to your product. Ask for reading suggestions if they are too busy. This is also just a cool way to learn and broaden your way of thinking by using resources within your company. If your colleagues aren't open to this, or for some reason are unable to help, seek help outside of your company. There are so many people you can easily find on LinkedIn nowadays to get insights from. Thirdly, read. Read suggested books by team members or ones I'm suggesting in the resource pack at the end of this talk. These can be books as specific as Hacking Growth, or broad, like Don't Make Me Think. The key thing is taking the time to open up your way of thinking, to level yourself up and your work life. And lastly, have a learning buddy. When I started my UX journey, a fellow colleague, a talent advisor, was also interested in learning about UX. With a background in psychology, he found it a very interesting subject. We often shared books, had mini book clubs with one another, and bounced ideas off of each other. This also helps keep you accountable, ensuring you finish that book or do that thing as your buddy is counting on you. There are also a lot of smaller changes you can make, but these were the biggest things I did to start the process. You just need to be open to learning and experiencing new things. As a result of following these steps and making my learnings, my approaches to work have shifted. I think of the user or receiver of whatever I am working on always, and then try and make whatever I am doing, whether it's a document or running an event, as easy to use, digest, or experience as possible. I'm always striving to learn something new, especially if it helps make my user's experience better. I am part of our book club at work, where we read a new book every month. I listen to podcasts and audiobooks about marketing practices and growth. And lastly, I work smarter, faster, and more creatively than before. So, before you start your next UX project, take a step back and understand just how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. It just might evolve your everyday thinking. Thank you. Here's also the resource page if you'd like to check out any of these books, websites, blogs, or podcasts that I'd recommend.